So let me jump over to Mark now. Mark, I know that you work a lot with data, and I know. Can you give us an idea of how are you managing data in helping companies um, uh, to grow?
So essentially, the key is that I'm kind of the glue that fits sales and marketing together, because marketing is getting these messages, getting these emails out. Sales is doing their own sales emails and making the phone calls. And then we're taking all of this data and ingesting this into the systems. And then we're going to say, all right, what resonated with whom and how? So essentially what I do is I try to make as thin slice of my data as much as possible. So when we send out these messages, did that message, we probably put it all in and it went to C levels, B levels, D levels, M levels. And they were all in marketing, finance, and sales. Which one of those resonated most? Who was the first person to raise their hand versus the person who signed the check? Because your final person might be the CFO, but you might have to engage with that first conversation with, just the financial analyst. So you need to be able to collect as much data as you can and then be able to say, all right, how do we A/B test? So when we send this message out, did we send two complementary messages? How did they do? Okay, this one did better than that one. All right, let's change one of them and figure out how did the next one do. So we had A and B. A did better than B. All right, now we have A and C. How did A versus C do? Oh, C did worse than A. All right, let's go back to B. And then if we have a sequence where we would tell people, it's like, we have 5, 6, 7 emails and phone calls going out, and we know everybody's converting on email number 5. Is it touch 5 that they're converting on, or is it actually that message in touch 5? So let's bring email 5 up to number 3 and switch it back. So, and these are things that we've applied continuously in the marketplace. We've I think with Duo Security, we had a sequence and we would put them out and we would always look at, okay, these messengers are working with our sales reps because it's easy to deploy. So we know that that one was email number 4. So let's pull that up to email number 1 and see is easy deploy manageable. And we said, yeah, for this group, for, IT professionals in law firms, easy to deploy was the message that would resonate with them. However, in the healthcare industry, easy to deploy wasn't as good a message. It was easy to manage. So being able to figure how you can have your thin the verticals of your segmented prospects and figure out what message matches with them and how do we make sure that we're maximizing the utility of it.
Yeah, it seems more important than ever to really kind of fine tune your targeted personas, if you will, the people that you're selling to. I know you're a proponent of using dashboards to help companies kind of manage their decision making with the data. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, the research that we've done is the C and V level typically spend a minimum of 2 hours every week just compiling data to make their strategic decisions. And a lot of that is doing the exact same, compiling the same data week after week. So if you set up a dashboard and you say, what are my metrics? How many leads went into the funnel? How many leads got emails? What's the open rate? What's the click-through rate? What's the call response rate? And being able to get all of that rote stuff into a dashboard, people can look at it all continuously and not have to work on compiling that data. The other thing is we can blend data. So you can take data that's coming from the marketing. All right, is there any correlation between website visitors and contact and people filling out the contact us form? How do we say here's the people in the bottom of the funnel? How often are they coming downloading our information? And that's something like if you just have a Salesforce or a Pardot or Marketo, you can't really take that because this data is coming from multiple sources. Mm-hmm. And then you look at it's like, okay, now let's tie that all back to financials. And then we get some of the most important metrics that are very difficult to achieve. So your CAC, your customer acquisition cost, which is your full spend on marketing and sales to capture that one customer. At FatStacks, we knew that we would capture on a pilot at 5K, and then we'd be able to grow them. By the end of the year and a half, they were paying almost $250,000. So we would send them an empty box of an iPad and say, if you want to see the iPad, just book a 20-minute demo with us, because we knew that our lifetime value of these guys was huge. That's the other metric. So CAC and lifetime value. So how much are they worth after 3 to 5 years, depending on what your CFO tells you what the LTV is. And you can only get that if you're blending data from marketing, sales, and finance, and then getting all that, and HR, because you got to get that payroll data in as well.
Yeah, I know. And sometimes I remember I've heard you talking about, Michael, was talking a little bit about the external sales force and how some things that can improve that. But I know you focus a lot on inside sales, right? And helping companies to use data to build better inside sales efforts. Any examples that you can share?
So the thing is, when you have the outside enterprise sales reps, they're glad handing. Yeah, they used to be having steak dinners and getting through and then coming to a board meeting and having those 5 or 6 people around the table. Inside sales on the support of that, and what the pandemic has done is we've turned a lot of those enterprise sales guys into inside sales, is that we could sit down with a power dialer and we could go down and in an hour get 200 to 300 dials out the door, because a lot of people aren't picking up the phone, and know that we're going to get 200 to 300 dials versus or 7 or 8 conversations, which is key, because having those conversations is key, and then collecting that data much more rapidly. And then as we get that data, the more conversations we have, the more information we gather, the more information we have, the more we can go around, because you might not want to pick up the phone and call the CFO and say, hey, we create dashboards for you. Our first move could be, we're going to call a manager, analyst, and the director of finance, say, hey, how do you guys manage data? Oh, you're not using any dashboards. Okay, well, you guys love using spreadsheets. You outsource these spreadsheets to someone else. Well, there's a security issue. Now, my fourth call, I can go back to the CFO and say, hey, I spoke to a couple of guys in your team. It sounds like you're doing a lot of data management. It sounds like you're setting these, you're using folks that are off your company payroll at 1099s to manage your data. That's a security risk. Would you be interested in, you want to get a Tableau or a Domo or something like that? But that the analyst is too expensive. Would you be interested in a conversation of a more cost-effective type of dashboard? And then you're in a conversation because you've got that information.
It's interesting you talk about cash flow, because many early stage companies are losing money, right? So cash flow is so important. And I remember I think the chief marketing officer or former chief marketing officer for HubSpot was talking about that you have to really sort of operate lean in the beginning until you figure out product market fit, until you figure out your processes that then make you scalable. And once you do that, then you got to spend like crazy and really ramp up and take advantage of that scalability and that gets to technology, right? So how has technology really played a part in all of this and all of these in this alignment in the growth initiatives that we're seeing today?
So I'm assuming this is me, because I do technology, as you can see from the background.
Anybody that wants it.
We all touch it. So go ahead.
So one of the issues, so I'm usually brought in, before I started this company, I was usually brought in as director of inside sales. And the first thing I do is I create shadow ops. So I got to get on the phone, got to send the emails. I got to figure out what is the number, because sales is a machine. From what my perspective is, like, how many emails, how many raw dials does it take? So at FatStacks, we knew it took us 107 raw dials when I started to book a single meeting. There was also a number for emails. So this is how I sit down with the first BDR team and I said, this is how much, this is your target. It's taking this much activity to hit your target. So there's essentially 3 ways of doing it better. You either find better leads, you dial faster or send more emails, or you get better at messaging and become a better salesperson than I am. And so then with the dial faster and finding out emails, it's like all of this was manual. So I knew what it was for me. So for me to get through 107 raw dials to plus emails and everything else, that was 1 day. So I knew every day I could book a meeting. Now I could sit myself in front of a Connect and Sell, an Orem, a concert, or one of these power dialers, and I could get through 300 dials in 2 to 3 hours. So now I knew I could up ramp the number of meetings I could have, but then I'd run out of leads quickly. So now I got to figure out, all right, which is my better status provider? Do I go with Zoom Info, Sales Intel, Cloudlytics, Seamless? There's a whole slew of them. And for each industry, there is a specific database that's better. And I say, great. Now I want to sequence them, because sales reps, when you're doing this amount of volume, you need to have a sequencing engine, a cadence system, something like an outreach, a sales loft, a concert, an outplay. And each one of them has a different value to a different market. Now I tie all of this together as a sales stack, and I'm ready to rock and roll. And I can put in even personalized videos and pseudo emails. Now what I've done is I've kind of taken the baby steps and said, all right, now we're going to move forward. Then we can start dialing in and say, all right, what is the average number that we need, that all of my reps should be looking at? So we had this one rep, Ed. Ed was falling behind the rest of the team. So we looked at him and we're like, all right, where's the failure point? Because you're taking 4 to 5 times more dials to book that single meeting. And he just could not handle objections. He couldn't handle them at all. So we came up with 3 core objections that for any cold call. It's send me some stuff, I'm all set, or I'm a special unicorn, you can't help me. So we coached him that he would essentially, they would say that objection, he would parrot it back to them. Oh, you're telling me send me some stuff. So I got a marketing team in the background that can blow up your inbox like a DDoS attack. What kind of stuff you looking for? So then, they'd say, oh, I'm a special unicorn. It's like, oh, that's why I called. You're the CFO of a company who's $1 to $2 million worth of revenue, and you've got 25 to 50 employees. You're probably suffering with spreadsheets. They're like, wow, you know me. So we taught him so good. We taught him so well to get around those objections that all of a sudden he got back up to the average. So that's where technology helps. We layer it to help them speed up, and then we figure out what the numbers are. And when they figure out where the numbers are, we then look down and said, who's not hitting the average, or the median is a better metric. And then we figure out what is the key thing. And if they're not hitting their dials or emails, then they're fired.
It sort of brings a whole new slant to sales is just a numbers game, right? I've heard that increasingly more than ever, it is a numbers game.
Always be pleasant.
But I'd like to add to that a little bit too.
So do I. Go ahead.
Is I've written a ton of sales scripts, inbound, outbound, training manuals, product manuals, customer service manuals. I'm a huge believer that everybody should have input on all of that, everybody from up, down the chain, so that everyone is on the same page. When you automate those scripts and you have the tree branches, when you're talking to a customer, it just makes it a whole lot easier. And then listening to those people, to the sales reps, right? Like listening in on the calls and making sure that they really understand what the message is and how to close someone and provide value on that phone call.
I'm just going to say thanks is, big picture from a marketing side. We talked about a lot of the sales tech out there, and it's really amazing, right? We've had marketing tech for a while, marketing automation, right? When you have these tools, however you want to pay and all the bells and whistles out there, how we orchestrate campaigns, funnels and cadences and thought leadership messages and where to post it, where, all this stuff going on, right? It's still building trust in the company, but the big picture is no matter how all these tools work and they're great, they're coming out like every day. It's still about the message and the people behind it, right? Because there's still a human touch out there. We're still buying from people. I'm buying from a person. The company is persuading me to dig deeper, to give up my email address because of valuable content they're giving me. And then it goes to the sales and all the technology, all the data points. I mean, you want to be optimized and all that research. At the end of the day, it's person to person, right? And I'm convinced. Here's my signature on DocuSign or whatever, right? But the point is we love technology here. We have on our website, we assess it, we can give recommendations and to build, I call it a revenue stack, marketing stack, sales stack, revenue stack, right? It all works together. It has to work together. That makes it more efficient and makes the job more efficient. But at the end of the day, it's the people and the process and the strategy that make it work even better. And if you're not optimizing the tools, then it's just a tool. So.
Yeah, I think it's important for any, for a smaller company that maybe, doesn't have quite the budget to hire a, chief marketing officer, chief revenue officer, chief content officer, chief technology officer. chief sales officer. I mean, what we try to do, right, is to actually bring sort of a senior level focus at less cost, in the end, but more cohesive in the sense that we collaborate on and kind of coordinate everything together in all of our solutions.
Well, it's that age-old axiom. It's people, process, product, and you have to go in that order. It's the people, and once you have the right people, then you develop the right processes. And when you have the right processes, you put the right product in front of them. Because if you don't have the right people, like the number of times where I've hired new BDR teams and I start with 4, and then you have to fire the first 2 because they're trepidatious about picking up the phone on day 2. It's like, sorry, that's the job. And if you think you were not going to do the job and you're not going to pick up the phone, that's why the first week it's training week. And you got to have the right people, then you have to have the process. So like Michael said, it's like, if you don't have a process, you're going to fail, because then people are just wandering aimlessly. And then you put the product, and that's where I come in. It's like, let's figure out, what is the cockpit do you need? Because sometimes an F-16 jet is what you require. Other times it's a battleship, and sometimes a helicopter or a submarine. And if you need a submarine and you're putting them into a jet fighter, you're probably not going to achieve the goals of your mission.
Well, Mark, to that point, I had a situation with a client. Their salespeople weren't working out, just like you said. So I said, instead of requesting resumes, the next time you hire someone, set up a phone number and have people call you. And then if they're good on the phone, then you ask them for their resume. Because if that's your job, you could say anything on a resume and a piece of paper, right? But you want to have salespeople call you first. If they can sell themselves, they can probably sell your product or your service.
It's all about trust and convincing. That's everything.
Right.
All we're doing here is we're in the convincing process. That's what we optimize that.
Right.
Gary, anything else you want to
Well, I think one of the things, and we touched upon it a little bit, is the concept of customer lifetime value. And then, so in theory, right, if you can maximize the customer lifetime value and you can minimize the cost of acquiring a customer, and you can put the right process in place, well, then that's how you scale. So we didn't really talk too much about how it's important, how you monetize, how you price your product and service is important too, because it plays into retention, it plays into cross-selling, upselling, but then acquiring new customers. It was very interesting. I recently heard a talk that from someone who had done, a large study, and his point was that if you were just focused on companies that are just focused on acquiring new customers and not focused on monetization and retention strategies, most of those were not having success. They weren't growing as fast as the companies that kind of focused on everything.
Right. That's how we started, and that's the theme here, right?
Well, this goes back to Michael's point, is that your retention, it costs sales a lot less to retain a client, and that's operational fuel, because it's, I don't want to be a derogatory term, that's free money, because we didn't have to pay to SEO, we didn't have to pay the sales rep to cold call them, the BDR. We just paid one person to say, hey, it's going great, fabulous, let's keep it going. Right. And maybe help them out. So that's operational fuel. That's why MRR and ARR is such monthly recurring revenue and annual recurring revenue are such value, and then churn are the 3 most valuable metrics that investors look at when they're looking at a company's valuation. They're not looking at service dollars. They're looking at, all right, how many people are buying you over and paying you an annual recurring revenue?
Yeah.
And survey, right.
And that's part of the services we provide to assess those things with clients.